Coming up on Nebraska Stories, the pen that captured the Great Plains. A house built just for Legos. Exploring the rich past and promising future of North Omaha. And the fresh bounty at the Norfolk Farmers Market.
I'm talking to Ron Hull, who had the good fortune to get to know Mari Sandoz. What was she like to meet?
I think if you remembered anything that anyone would ever tell you about Mari Sandoz, you'd have to remember that this was a woman who worked harder than I think anybody I ever knew. Mm-hmm. She always worked. You know, she never claimed to be a Willa Cather or a great stream of consciousness kind of creative writer. That wasn't her goal to be. What her goal was to be a significant research person who carefully did research, as the historian does, and then combined that with creative writing and some talent, which she certainly had. She's the best storyteller ever. She could talk for hours about stories in an animated way that just brought back everything. The images that she conjured up in your mind were just magical.
I like to think that the beginning was this little girl who sat on the gatepost, and she'd rather read than eat. Isn't this how your writing all began?
Oh, yes. I'd rather read than eat. I'd rather read than eat now. But that gatepost was a nice, big, old, heavy one. It was broad on top and flat, and people went by. The world went by. Cowboys, Indians, and the wind and the birds. And the dishes were behind me in the house. I didn't decide to become a writer. I just got bored without having any stories to read, and the storytellers weren't always around, so I started telling myself stories.
You gave up a couple of times, didn't you, though,
Yes.
before Old Jules was published? And didn't you go back to the Sandhills?
Yes, to get a little meat on my bones. Yes. Doctor found spots on my lungs, and I was down to 90 pounds, and nobody wanted the Old Jules.
I think of this patience of your sending this over and over and over again.
It isn't a matter of patience. You had to bear by the tail. Everybody knew I was writing this book. Was I going to admit that it wouldn't sell? No, unless I had to.
Do you ever envy her having gotten out and gotten away and lived another life, known two worlds?
No, because she worked. If I think I worked, she worked 10 times as hard.
At being a writer?
At being a writer. She really worked.
I don't know what kept her going in the same sense of your mother, but in another way. She was rejected so long, and her manuscripts were considered worthless by so many
That's right.
publishers for so many years. Now it seems strange. Why was that? Were they looking for other kinds of material in those days?
They didn't believe this country. They just couldn't believe it.
This is a child who was beaten and grew up in a dugout. And to emerge from that into being a person who had enormous influence on what we know about the history of this region and Native American history and culture, I think the idea that she fought so hard to become a writer, and very few people realize how old she was as all this was happening. She didn't publish Old Jules until she was almost 40, and she really only had 20 solid years as a famous, well-known, respected author. And the fact that she did that and came through with such powerful works and legacy is a remarkable thing. The Mari Sandoz Society was founded in the 1970s by a group of people who were really passionate about sharing the history and legacy of Mari Sandoz. They began to develop people's interest in Mari as a person beyond just the books that she wrote. So this organization really took shape in that decade or so after Mari died, and then it became just much bigger over time based out of Chadron, and eventually raising enough money to build the Mari Sandoz High Plains Heritage Center that we're sitting in here today.
We'll have a lot of tourists through here because they love the museum. We'll have people, from Canada or whatnot. We get a lot of guests from, back east. Not just back east, but Massachusetts the other day, New York. They hear about it, they read about it, but they want to see the real spot. On the south side is the dynamic/permanent side of the Mari Sandoz High Plains Heritage Center. And if you notice, we are super fortunate. We actually have what I call the 3D effects. Her hats, her clothing, her desk, her furniture from Greenwich Village in New York. There's one awesome display of her real jewelry, her scarves and whatnot, because when she was in New York, she was very fashion conscious. And what we have is the archives, which is a locked place where they have original manuscripts and her original clothing. Really fancy, fun shoes. And you can tell that she utilized them. It wasn't just, once in a while. They're very well worn.
Really, right now, we're at this next step, which we're going to call Mari Sandoz Society 3.0. And the main feature of that is going to be digitizing her collection of materials that she willed when she passed away in 1966. She decided less than 3 months before she died that her materials would go to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. There was over 100 linear feet of papers that were gifted. So we're really excited to do this project that will join the Neihardt Collection and the Cather Collection as being 3 of the major authors and collections that are being held by the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
I'm really excited about the Mari Sandoz archives and what she has there because there's so many aspects of it. It's like, what do I start with? So for correspondence, it's really exciting, and there's many different ways. The amount, the personality of Mari Sandoz that comes through, the way she was very clear about her opinion. She was a generous and lovely woman, but she was not afraid to share her opinion. I love that. I love that she was such a strong advocate for her work and for a variety of communities. And that's just correspondence. Then you've got over 350,000 is the number we have on her index cards, which she would keep all of the research that she would do. She would gather a lot of articles and documents and stuff and keep that research, so her research files are really large. And then we go into the manuscripts, which are really exciting because you can see the habit of writing in longhand in the beginning, I understand, and then she would slowly get her stuff typed and then edited and typed and edited again. So you can see all those variations of a manuscript. The whole sum total of the collection, if you follow a thread of a person or a book or a theme, you can just see how much energy and time and research and thoughtfulness that she put into all of her work from the beginning to the end.
We are certain that once this is fully digitized and people can go in and do a Google search of this digital content, that they're going to draw connections between events and people and research that she has done that's going to be new. And we think this will bring an entire renaissance of historical research about Mari Sandoz and the West.
I'm excited about this, even though the digitization process will take a long time. I'm excited because I think more people need to see who Mari is. Like her advocacy for Indigenous people, her really strong viewpoints on the strength of women in these environments. I will say that's also exciting about the digitalization project is we hired students to come in and start doing the indexing and listing all the different letters. And then they'll start doing some of the scanning now. But they were so excited and so well versed in some of the topics that she talked about and some of the things that she said and some of the stories that were already coming out of her letters. And so if that level of enthusiasm that you just see in students as they're doing the work is indicative of what people who could read more will learn and get excited about.
So this is a letter in 1943 from a man named Roy Handley to Mari Sandoz. And I think it just really strikes at the heart of like her significance and like who she was as a writer and a person. The stories of Mari Sandoz shall live forever in the hearts of those who love the prairies. And in years to come, when the untamed country is but a memory, when the generations come and go, and the living have gone to join the folks of yesterday, then these books shall be a living testimony of the settling of the West, written by one who knows the West and in the plain language of the West, has spoken the pioneer spirit that all can understand.
It's a hobby for free time. I don't golf, I don't fish. I gotta have a vice, I guess, in my retirement ages.
For many, collecting evokes pride in the pieces that they have in their possession. For others, it's the assembling of that collection that drives them. For a couple in Arnold, Nebraska, constructing a Lego collection has been a years-long effort, one that continues to expand each year.
For me, it's just, lack of a better term, the excitement or whatever, to have a pile of like nothing and just see it come together as you build. The sense of accomplishment, I guess.
Well, it's better than sitting in front of the TV watching nothing. You feel like you've accomplished something when you get done. If we're building big, one of us will start out building, the other one sort, and after a while we switch. So we're back and forth building or sorting, and it keeps your fingers, because after a while they start stiffening up, and we just do that.
Harvey and his wife Barb share time together, piecing these intricate creations together. It's a small part of their long and successful marriage. The couple has put together over 500 kits and continues to assemble more. It became apparent as their passion grew that they would need more space for these creations.
Early on, when I built Legos, I was just putting them in like a cardboard box and setting them in my basement of the house. Well, then a few years later, we bought a lot next door, and I was running out of room to store my toys. I put this building up in 2018. So I like the fact that I can come and go because it's right next door to our living house.
Yeah, I can't send him over here when he's naughty, because that's not gonna, teach him anything. A lot of people they'll tease him about being sent to the Lego house.
Their Lego house has a multitude of themes inside that include Disney, pirates, Western, and an amusement park, among many others.
I got a Harry Potter Hogwarts castle that was 6,000 pieces. But I've got sets that there's only 20 or 30 pieces in it, and some 200, some 3. They come in all sizes. And I've had people ask me about buying or trading or whatever, but I'm married to them. And no, I'm not gonna let them go.
With the size of the collection and their passion far from waning, Harvey and Barb opened up their museum to the public. In doing so, they've seen many reconnect with their childhoods as they pass through.
And they will come in here and reminisce about when they were kids and what they built, the different sets that they liked. I can come over here and sit down and start working and think I've been here for 20 minutes. You look at your clock and you've been there 2 hours. But it's very relaxing, soothing.
Well, the truth of the matter is, I'm passionate about my beloved community, North Omaha. And that passion has taken on the form of me wanting everyone who comes in contact or who does not to learn more about our community, its history, and its culture.
Writer, activist, and native Nebraskan Preston Love Jr. is on a mission to change people's perspectives on the North Omaha community. And he's found an innovative way to do it by bringing them to the historically African-American neighborhood.
That's why I'm doing the tour. It's for the purpose of educating and hopefully waking up people and making them more aware of this wonderful, my beloved but wonderful, glorious community.
Called the North Omaha Legacy Tour, it focuses on the rich heritage, legacy, and historical contributions of the community. It begins with a short orientation to provide context for the tour, followed by a drive through areas that are culturally significant.
Let me get the tour. The Omaha Star is historic in so many ways, but it tells a story about a community like communities all over this nation who grew their own things because of racism and discrimination and bigotry. But the Omaha Star was founded in 1938 by a very eccentric woman by the name of Mildred Brown. Mildred Brown was a unique lady in her day because she was an African-American businesswoman in a day where there weren't a lot. And she was a go-getter. She started that business. It is still going. But the Star has quite a history. It was started with the idea that it would only write the good news about the residents of North Omaha, and it has stayed with them all along. You have the most current edition in your pack that I gave you. The Great Plains Black History Museum is a chronicle in itself. It's a tour within four walls, if you will. And so it has great value for people to learn about the past and how it connects with the future. Many things. I'm going to turn you over to the executive director of the Great Plains Museum, Eric Ewing.
As you look around, the exhibit that you'll find in this space is the history of historically black colleges and universities. This is a year-long exhibit, so actually even what you see right now, by the end of this week, it will be 10 to 8 new institutions. Because there's so many schools, we couldn't feature them all at once. So what we decided to do was make it a year-long exhibit, and each month we change out the institutions that are on display.
But this tour isn't just about North Omaha's past. It's about revitalizing this once thriving community.
We visit some of our community gardens, which are propping up. We visit and comment on the amount of vacant lots of unutilized property in the community. We visit the many wonderful new and exciting murals in the community. And then we visit the significant residuals of this long-term community disinvestment, the community's economic devastation. All of that is caught up and is mentioned and part of the tour as well.
It also includes a stop at the site that was once home to the first Black honoree in the Nebraska Hall of Fame.
The Malcolm X Center speaks for itself in my mind because people are interested and some are just learning that the iconic Malcolm X was born in this community. And so we go to his birth site. It's a natural and it is significant.
Thank you, everyone, for being on this great tour, for stopping to visit us here at the Malcolm X Memorial Foundation. We want everyone to come and learn the truth of who he was as a man, as a child, as a husband, as a father, and learn and help support our mission in uplifting this community.
Opening minds and changing opinions is what Preston Love Jr. hopes to achieve through the tour. And it seems to be working.
Well, the things with the Malcolm X
thing at the end of the tour was interesting to me. I mean, the things that we heard about Malcolm X years ago were not very nice, to say the least. And so to see what's happened and how the people here have taken an interest in showing what he really did and things that have happened and are trying to make changes in this whole area based on his foundation here. So I think that's fantastic.
Probably one of the most exciting things that I can mention about the tour, which was expected but underestimated, was the economic impact that we're having on this poverty-stricken community. Since we started, our estimate is that we have impacted financially over $50,000 of money that has come into the community that would not have come if it weren't for the tour. That's the tourists buying from our retail since they're here, having meals here since they're here, returning after the tour.
What being a part of the Legacy Tour has done for Big Mamas is, continue my mom's vision of bringing people together over great food. The tours bring folks from all over the state, from all walks of life, and in these crazy times that we live in, we need things to bring people together. And my mother always felt that you could change the world if you prepared somebody a great meal.
I think the tour is serving a great purpose. I want people to come and take this tour because they will learn about a community when they come from outside the community that they don't know.
Several times I said, I didn't know that. The red line delineating white neighborhoods from black neighborhoods I found very interesting. It never occurred to me that there was an exact dividing line between neighborhoods. I didn't know that.
One of the things I'm really proud of, somewhat unexpected, but it is that we really are making a difference as it relates to bridging the gap between communities and culture within the city. We're really making a difference, and I'm proud that as people learn about our community, then they have a tendency to want to learn more, number one, and reach out and develop new relationships.
River Point Square is lined with vendors each summer for the Norfolk Farmers Market.
Hi. Last radish, $1.50. Out of two.
There you will find sisters Stacy and Sandy Dickman, who got their start at the market.
Growing up, always wanted to live out in the country. We did a lot of gardening at my grandfather's house. When we graduated from college, we actually bought a house in town together, kind of a fixer-upper, fixed that up, and then sold it and used the down payment money to buy the farm.
The place that we ended up buying had produce grown on it at one time, and so we decided that this was something that we wanted to try.
The farmer's market was in the parking lot of where I used to work, and so stopped at the parking lot and talked to the vendors there and just got started.
You got any more of the sourdough left?
Sourdough? I think we do. We do, yes.
I'll take one.
A sourdough? Okay.
North Fork Bread Company, another local favorite, also got their start at the Norfolk Farmers Market.
I started baking bread as a hobby probably about 6 or 7 years ago when I was in grad school, actually. And I would make it just for my friends and my wife. I'd started selling at the Norfolk Farmers Market 4 years ago, the summer of 2018. And that was the original plan at first, was just to do the farmers market and just kind of take the winters off or sell individually here and there.
I think that the most fun thing to grow is the pumpkins and the gourds because, especially the gourds, when you start picking them, you never know what you're going to find. They always come in the different, oddest shapes.
We like to do green beans. It's just nothing better than fresh green beans.
are morning buns. They're very popular. That combination of that croissant dough with the orange peel plus the brown sugar and all that and cinnamon makes for a really good combination.
Caleb, Stacy, and Sandy started selling to just a few customers, but quickly expanded.
The city invited us a year ago to come down here and start selling here at the River Point, and so that's been a really good move for us.
When the farmers market moved downtown, that really exploded our business for us. I wanted to keep that momentum going. This bakery came up for sale, and I said, well, it's a good opportunity. I feel like it's been presented to me, and so I feel like I need to go ahead and take the plunge and go for it full time.
As these vendors continue to grow, they will always find a sense of home at River Point Square.
The farmers market was such a great way to just get to know the community. I mean, it was my first introduction to the city of Norfolk. Really connecting with people one-on-one.
You get the same customers come back to you all the time, talk to you. They tell you about their kids, they tell you their stories.
I love being around the people here at Market. I enjoy planting things and seeing things grow, and I don't think I would ever quit for a long time. The best part of Farmers Market is you're kind of like a family.
Did you say Paulo? Say thank you? Thank you. Yeah, good job.
Watch more Nebraska Stories on our website, Facebook, and YouTube. Nebraska Stories is funded in part by the Margaret and Martha Thomas Foundation and the Bill Harris and Mary Sue Hormel Harris Fund for the presentation of cultural programming.